with the big history. Today we'll look at, come on, written language. So we have many different languages here, and then I have invited Albert Isaac to give us a talk on the Hebrew language next term. And then after that, I probably will give you a talk on Chinese language. You want to give a talk about Tamil?
I just want to boast, that's all. And tell you Tamil is the oldest language in use today.
Okay.
That's all, I just want to boast.
Probably you want to tell us a little bit more. Okay, let's see. Proto writing before the real writing, okay. So there is a researcher who went to look at all the cave paintings, and she noticed that there are many patterns which has repeated in many different caves in France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, etc. These symbols range from dots and lines and triangles and squares and all. So I will let her talk about that. Are you able to hear it, Albert?
There's something about caves. A shadowy opening in a limestone cliff that draws you in. As you pass through the portal between light and dark, you enter a subterranean world, a place of perpetual gloom, of earthy smells, of hushed silence. Long ago in Europe, ancient people also entered these underground worlds. As witness to their passage, they left behind mysterious engravings and paintings, like this panel of humans, triangles, and zigzags from Ojo Guarenya in Spain. You now walk the same path as these early artists. And in a surreal, otherworldly place, it's almost possible to imagine that you hear the muffled footfall of skin boots on soft earth, or that you see the flickering of a torch around the next bend. When I'm in a cave, I often find myself wondering, what drove these people to go so deep, to brave dangerous and narrow passageways to leave their mark? In this video clip that was shot 1/2 kilometer, or about 1/3 of a mile underground in the cave of Punon in Spain, we found a series of red paintings on a ceiling in a previously unexplored section of the cave. As we crawled forward military style, with the ceiling getting ever lower, we finally got to a point where the ceiling was so low that my husband and project photographer Dylan could no longer achieve focus on the ceiling with his DSLR camera. So while he filmed me, I kept following the trail of red paint with a single light and a point and shoot camera that we kept for that type of occasion. 1/2 kilometer underground. Seriously, what was somebody doing down there with a torch or a stone lamp? I mean, me, it makes sense, right? But you know, this is the kind of question that I'm trying to answer with my research. I study some of the oldest art in the world. It was created by these early artists in Europe between 10,000 and 40,000 years ago. And the thing is that I'm not just studying it because it's beautiful, although some of it certainly is. But what I'm interested in is the development of the modern mind, of the evolution of creativity, of imagination, of abstract thought, about what it means to be human. While all species communicate in one way or another, only we humans have really taken it to another level. Our desire and ability to share and collaborate has been a huge part of our success story. Our modern world is based on a global network of information exchange, made possible in large part by our ability to communicate, in particular using graphic or written forms of communication. The thing is, though, that we've been building on the mental achievements of those who came before us for so long that it's easy to forget that certain abilities haven't already existed. It's one of the things I find most fascinating about studying our deep history. Those people didn't have the shoulders of any giants to stand on. They were the original shoulders. And while a surprising number of important inventions come out of that distant time, what I want to talk to you about today is the invention of graphic communication. There are three main types of communication: spoken, gestural, so things like sign language, and graphic communication. Spoken and gestural are by their very nature ephemeral. It requires close contact for a message to be sent and received, and after the moment of transmission, it's gone forever. Graphic communication, on the other hand, decouples that relationship. And with its invention, it became possible for the first time for a message to be transmitted and preserved beyond a single moment and place in time. Europe is one of the first places that we start to see graphic marks regularly appearing in caves, rock shelters, and even a few surviving open-air sites. But this is not the Europe we know today. This was a world dominated by towering ice sheets 3 to 4 kilometers high, with sweeping grass plains and frozen tundra. This was the Ice Age. Over the last century, more than 350 Ice Age rock art sites have been found across the continent, decorated with animals, abstract shapes, and even the occasional human, like these engraved figures from Grotta della Dura in Sicily. They provide us with a rare glimpse into the creative world and imagination of these early artists. Since their discovery, it's been the animals that have received the majority of the study, like this black horse from Cuyavera in Spain, or this unusual purple bison from La Pasiaga. But for me, it was the abstract shapes, what we call geometric signs, that drew me to study the art. The funny thing is that at most sites, the geometric signs far outnumber the animal and human images. But when I started on this back in 2007, there wasn't even a definitive list of how many different shapes there was, nor was there a strong sense of whether the same ones appeared across space or time. Before I could even get started on my questions, my first step was to compile a database of all known geometric signs from all of the rock art sites. The problem was that while they were well documented at some sites, usually the ones with the very nice animals, there was also a large number of them where it was very vague. There wasn't a lot of description or detail. Some of them hadn't been visited in half a century or more. These were the ones that I targeted for my fieldwork. Over the course of 2 years, my faithful husband Dylan and I each spent over 300 hours underground, hiking, crawling, and wriggling around 52 sites in France, Spain, Portugal, and Sicily. And it was totally worth it. We found new, undocumented geometric signs at 75% of the sites we visited. This is the level of accuracy I knew I was going to need if I wanted to start answering those larger questions. So let's get to those answers. Barring a handful of outliers, there are only 32 geometric signs. Only 32 signs across a 30,000-year time span and the entire continent of Europe. That is a very small number. Now, if these were random doodles or decorations, we would expect to see a lot more variation. But instead, what we find are the same signs repeating across both space and time. Some signs start out strong before losing popularity and vanishing, while other signs are later inventions. But 65% of those signs stayed in use during that entire time period. Things like lines, rectangles, triangles, ovals, and circles, like we see here from the end of the Ice Age at a 10,000-year-old site high in the Pyrenees Mountains. And while certain signs span thousands of kilometers, other signs had much more restricted distribution patterns, with some being limited to a single territory, like we see here with these divided rectangles that are only found in northern Spain, and which some researchers have speculated could be some sort of family or clan signs. On a side note, there is a surprising degree of similarity in the earliest rock art found all the way from France and Spain to Indonesia and Australia. With many of the same signs appearing in such far-flung places, especially in that 30,000 to 40,000 year range, it's starting to seem increasingly likely that this invention actually traces back to a common point of origin in Africa. But that, I'm afraid, is a subject for a future talk. So back to the matter at hand. There could be no doubt that these signs were meaningful to their creators. like these 25,000-year-old bas-relief sculptures from Roch de Vézac in France. We might not know what they meant, but the people of that time certainly did. The repetition of the same signs for so long and at so many sites tells us that the artists were making intentional choices. If we're talking about geometric shapes with specific, culturally recognized, agreed upon meanings, then we could very well be looking at one of the oldest systems of graphic communication in the world. I'm not talking about writing yet. There's just not enough characters at this point to have represented all of the words in the spoken language, something which is a requirement for a full writing system. Nor do we see the signs repeating regularly enough to suggest that they were some sort of alphabet. But what we do have are some intriguing one-offs, like this panel from La Pasiega in Spain, known as the inscription, with its symmetrical markings on the left, possible stylized representations of hands in the middle, and what looks a bit like a bracket on the right. The oldest systems of graphic communication in the world, Sumerian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, the earliest Chinese script, all emerged between 4,000 and 5,000 years ago, with each coming into existence from an earlier proto-system made up of counting marks and pictographic representations, where the meaning and the image were the same. So a picture of a bird would really have represented that animal. It's only later that we start to see these pictographs become more stylized until they almost become unrecognizable. And that we also start to see more symbols being invented to represent all those other missing words in the language, things like pronouns, adverbs, adjectives. So knowing all this, it seems highly unlikely that the geometric signs from Ice Age Europe were truly abstract written characters. Instead, what's much more likely is that these early artists were also making counting marks, maybe like this row of lines from Reparo di Domenica in Sicily, as well as creating stylized representations of things from the world around them. Could some of the signs be weaponry or housing? Or what about celestial objects like star constellations? Or maybe even rivers, mountains, trees, landscape features, possibly like this black penniform surrounded by strange bell-shaped signs from the site of El Castillo in Spain. The term penniform means feather-shaped in Latin, but could this actually be a depiction of a plant or a tree? Some researchers have begun to ask these questions about certain signs at specific sites, but I believe the time has come to revisit this category as a whole. The irony in all this, of course, is that having just carefully classified all of the signs into a single category, I have a feeling that my next step will involve breaking it back apart as different types of imagery are identified and separated off. Now, don't get me wrong, the later creation of fully developed writing was an impressive feat in its own right. But it's important to remember that those early writing systems didn't come out of a vacuum, and that even 5,000 years ago, people were already building on something much older, with its origins stretching back tens of thousands of years to the geometric signs of Ice Age Europe and far beyond, to that point deep in our collective history when someone first came up with the idea of making a graphic mark and forever changed the nature of how we communicate. Thank you.
So here are some of the consistent logos or doodles. North America and Europe, we suppose if people are there, they shouldn't have communicated for a long time. It will take them maybe generations to move from one place to the other of that large distance. But the similarity is striking, isn't it? It's striking. So there is a good argument whether language is a single origin language or language has been developed independently at different places. Of course, today we have a lot of different languages, but when we look back, for example, sorry. Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Tony, and I'm calling from Energy Saver. How are you?
Another guy want to sell me energy. Okay. What's that?
Root of languages.
Photo languages. Thank you. So different places. Are we looking at single origin? That means all humans have the same language when they move out from Africa, and then bring that language with them, and then that language eventually evolves into what we have today. Now, the modern language can be classified into different groups. The Indo-Asian, Indo-Aryan languages. We have different language groups, right? So yes, today we look at it as okay, that's different. But if this is correct, if what we found here is correct, if human has already developed all these different symbols before they left Africa, it's a whole different story. Today we don't have an answer. We don't know whether it is single origin or multiple origin.
But isn't it true that most of the world's languages, I mean, not separating out Chinese, but most of the other languages have their roots in either Sanskrit or Latin? Is that not true?
I don't know, because the question is whether all these languages, maybe except Chinese, have the Latin base.
Or Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. Yeah, I don't know. We really don't know. But that is a very interesting thing for the archaeologists to investigate. For me, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know. So, well, we just have to take on the data first, okay, and then we will later interpret what we see.
Sorry, may I ask another question that's related to this? What is history saying? When did the Chinese come out of Africa? When did they come to China?
Now, in China, we have the so-called Beijing Man, okay? But Beijing Man is a Homo erectus. It's not Homo sapiens. In terms of Homo sapiens, that means us. I think we all come out from Africa about 70,000 years ago. Everybody. But when they arrive in China, we don't know yet. At the moment, Chinese is now starting to do a lot of archaeology. But before that, when the rest of the world is digging up, China is very poor. Nobody have enough food to allow them to do research. But nowadays they are starting to take it up. At the moment they are digging at something called Samsingdui, okay, a place. Okay, this is a place, and they found a gold mask. Now, half of the mask, which is in gold. Very beautiful artifacts. But that date back to about, I think it's 10,000 years or so. So we don't know. We are waiting for different places to find older and older evidence. For Australia here, Australia, the Aborigines arrived here, it's 80,000? 60. Okay, if the Australians arrived here, that means about 10,000 years after human left Africa, somebody's already in Australia.
Yeah, but they're saying, I mean, you all know better than I, but I remember reading someone, is it a Professor Thorne from ANU? There was a video long ago. He said that the Aboriginals came here from various routes. It's not, it's not one route apparently. Apparently they came through different routes. One came to India, and when they interviewed early Dingo, Dingo, they took him to this tribal area in India, and he actually broke down and cried because he said that his people were capturing animals using that technique. And they traced it. He said his mother's people stayed in India for a little while before coming here. And then Professor Thorne said that some came from like the Red Indians, you know,
Yeah.
that they came to the Pacific and came down.
Yeah. So
That's what he says.
yeah, it's still a lot of questions how people spread. Like for Australia, I haven't looked into it. Probably you're right. We have some several routes. But one of the most likely areas, obviously passing down along the current day Indonesia islands, and then jump over to here. So that would be a very likely path. And for those in Africa, America, how they go over to America. So a lot of arguments on the north.
Bering Strait.
Bering Strait. But there are other arguments that's the the Polynesian in that region. They are very good sailors. They may sail across it. So we don't know at the moment. So it is a very interesting topic to find out that there are people doing the research, probably through DNA tracing. But I haven't looked into it yet, but that would be anyone want to do a research on that and then come back to present to us? No? So that means I have to do it. Okay, I will do it and then we'll present about that a little bit later on. Let me do the research to find out what is the modern idea of how humans spread. But language is another interesting case. Even in Australia down here, we are symbols quite similar to somewhere else. Obviously, at the moment, most of the symbols is in Europe, but it doesn't mean that most of the symbol must be in Europe, because Europe is where the most research has been done. So they come up with most, but later on when different parts of the world have more research, probably the idea may change. For us, the rock art in Australia is pretty old, isn't it? Pretty old. So we have to look at that, but obviously there's some of the science, but if people really do a research in Australia, find all the science, probably we will come up with more science. And again, this science is come out with, first of all, look at the Europe side, and then if they're similar, we included it. So it might be something new science, which we don't know. So quite interesting idea. So again, the same lady from his book, from her book, The First Science. He described this early system of communication through abstract science as a precursor to the global network of information exchange in the modern world. We have been building on mental achievements of these who came before us for so long, she says, that it is easy to forget that certain abilities haven't already existed long before the formal written records we recognize. These symbols traveled. They aren't only found in caves, but also etched into the deer teeth hung together in an ancient necklace. So you have some animals' teeth, you mark it and then make it in the neck. I don't know whether I got an image of that one. No, I haven't. But anyway, that is a very interesting thing. And then the other is the first instance of making an intentional graphic work of one of the most profoundly important moments in our species history. Right up there with the invention of tools, the control of fire, the development of spoken language, whatever that mark may have been, even if it is just a single line, doesn't matter. What matters is that for the first time, someone purposely made a mark on a physical surface with the intent to communicate meaning. That message had the power to survive beyond that specific place and moment, and the language had officially taken on a life of its own. Another life beyond that of its maker. The first mark still had an awful long way to evolve in order to become the variety of graphic communication systems employed by people around the world today. But once that critical step has been taken, its spread was inevitable. Very, very well written. Explain. now communication, this couple with place and time, we can leave records, leave knowledge, and that knowledge can now propagate. Total new level of development. I think that is one of the most important aspects of it. Okay, now I'm looking at a few examples here. I'm mainly looking at examples. I'm not going to dig very deep into every one of these. This is the early Proto-Chinese. It is found about 6,600 BC. So that is about 8,000 years old. And these are encrypted on bones or tortoise shell. This one is a tortoise shell. And of course, by now the tortoise shell has cracked, but notice the engraving is very complicated in any standard. Another symbol for another place, I don't know where it is. Vinca, anybody knows? It is in Central Europe and Southeast Europe, and that is found about 5,000 to 4,000 BCE. So again, that's about 7,000 years ago. So it's what does it mean? Everybody's guess. Okay, but to somebody that must mean something, isn't it?
Albert, could you go back to the 2 slides back? Next one. Yes, that one. I'm looking at the symbol 4th row down, second from the left, and
the 4th one from the left, the very complicated one.
I think I'm looking at something very rude there.
No. No. I don't think so.
I wonder. I think it is.
Now, some of these I can read.
Okay.
Okay, let me read some of this. This is 2, right here. 2 stroke.
Yeah.
Chinese 2 stroke is 2. Yeah, and that is 3, but that is probably not 3. 3 will be longer at the bottom. That probably is below. And this is sun early rising. So I think the Chinese can read a little bit. Still have a little bit similar. This one might be the 100, isn't it? Looks like 100. I don't know. This one I don't know.
Why? How are you able to do this? Is it because your modern Chinese has something that
Similar to it, yes.
looks the same?
Looks the same, yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Now this one is the wood. This is the wood. And I think this is that Zhao? Zhao Jiu or Zhao? Looks like that, isn't it?
With the 5 on the top, is it?
A 5 in the top. No.
What you were saying with the mouth?
This one?
No, but one down.
One down. This one
Yes.
is a Zhao.
Zhao.
Zhao Qiu or Zhao. It's a dynasty in the Zhao dynasty. Is that right? I don't know. No, it should be before Zhao's dynasty.
Because it looks like the head and the mouth.
Yeah, it might be a priest, something like that. I don't know. But anyway.
I still think, Albert, the next one along
This one?
is, yeah. No.
You are thinking dirty.
Well, yes, I'm sure that it is meant to be part of the male body.
Maybe. I don't know.
On the one to the right.
This one?
Where?
This one?
No, next one down. Next one down.
This one?
That one. Yes, definitely.
This one is probably the beautiful lady.
Well,
I don't know.
anyway.
Anyway, interesting observation, and I don't mind because we are all adults.
Well, exactly. But
Yeah, this one means a Persian. So this is Persian, and then this one, if according to Chinese, will be chill, meaning beautiful. So a beautiful Persian, probably a beautiful lady, but I don't know. Yes. Now, when I did that course, is that 3 years ago? We have erotica. So you might, we have a talk about erotica, ancient to present. Look like not much interest. Wait and see. Maybe by then you are interested. Okay. This one is a wooden tablet. And approximately 7,300 to 5,200 BC. So it's 9,000 years ago. Very, very old. In Greece. So probably we would like it to be dated a bit more accurately. At the moment, we don't know whether. So the transition from proto-writing to earliest fully developed writing system. The Sumerian stone tablet, I think they make a mistake in the stone. This is a clay tablet. So this is made of date, and it is dated to 27th century BC. So it's 4,700 years ago. So it contains administrative text. So look like somewhere here has somebody signed it, but I can't read that. But anyway, somebody said so. Pictographs. One of the earliest writing system is the cuneiform, made by wedges. So today there are people doing that. So let's look at one here. I will show this. I show this video first, and then we'll come back. Let me try sending the sound to the TV, see whether it's better. Okay. Albert, I said, if you can't hear it, let me know, okay? Can you hear that?
No.
very, very faintly.
Very, very faint.
Extremely
So I
faint. I can't make it out.
Okay. Sorry, stop you. We will get you started again. Change it back to here. Okay, try again.
How to write in cuneiform according to style.
That's better.
The Babylonians and the Assyrians and multiple other cultures throughout the ancient world. We're going to be making clay tablets, just like Abraham used to make. And so to do this exercise, we first of all need to use our stylus. And if you haven't yet already seen it, then you need to watch the video where I show you how to make one of these for a very little amount of money. So the first thing you need to do is you need to know the parts of this thing. And so the first thing you need to do is find out where the writing tip is. And so how to write with it, basically, or where to write with it from. So the first thing you need to know is this side here that is sharp is called the blade. And for obvious reasons, it's like a knife blade or something, but we dulled it down a little bit so it doesn't sharp and cut anybody. Then this top part here is called the porous edge, or the porous end. And finally, you have on this side, the glossed side, and you can see it's a little bit shinier. It's actually the outside of the bamboo, whereas this side right here is called the fibrous side, and that's because it's got the fibers from the inside. And then finally, this is called the spine, or the spinal side. And then the edge between the spinal side and the glossy side is called the spine, just like a book spine or your back spine. At the very tip of the spine is the writing edge. Now, to find out where that is, what you need to do is you need to take it and you want to hold it so the blade is facing to your right. All right, so if you're holding it up like this, the blade is going to be facing this way, to your right, not on the camera here, but to your right. And then the spinal side is going to be facing to your left. The glossy side is going to be facing away from you towards the camera here. All right, and the fibrous side is going to be facing you. So blade to the right, glossy side out. All right, and you're going to hold it in your right hand. I know there's a lot of left-handed people out there. I'm left-handed myself, but the thing is, you can't write in cuneiform and left-handed, and that's okay. You're going to find it's not hard to do even right-handed, even if you are left-handed. No big deal. You can still do it. All right, so you're going to hold it in your right hand, blade to the right, glossy side out. And then that means that this edge right here on the glossy side, that's what you're going to write with. So you want to choke up a little bit so that your thumb is right behind the glossy side, and that's what we're going to write with. All right, so for this activity, you're going to need, first of all, some modeling clay. And this is the type of modeling clay that I use. This is white, I think. White clay, you can use any color. It really doesn't make any difference. I like the white. I really like the gray best of all, just because it's not as messy as the brown is. The brown is really messy. I don't know, it stains your hands or something. The stain doesn't last long though. And then the big thing though is that the brown clay is a little bit tougher it's not as malleable as the gray and the white clay. So either one of those two is the best. You see it comes in a bag. Like this, and clay is going to cost you anywhere from $8 to $20. This thing right here is like 20 some bucks at Joann's craft store. You can get them at a craft store or anywhere you want to, pretty much. I'm not even sure, but Walmart might even sell them at this point. Who knows? So another thing that you're going to need is you're going to need your stylus, like we've already seen. I want to use a bowl of water or a glass of water. Then the next thing you're going to do is use some paper towels because you're going to need to wipe your hands off from time to time. This is clay, you're going to get muddy. And then also there's a sheet that is available on my website that has the Ugaritic alphabet. Okay, so you're just going to knead your clay like dough. And just what you're doing there is you're getting rid of any kind of air pockets that are inside. Now, as you're doing this, you're going to see that it's going to start to dry out. You get these nice little cracks there. If that starts to happen, then you just take your fingers, take 2 or 3 fingers, just dip the tip of them into the water, just very shallowly. You don't want a whole lot of water on there. You don't want these to get too slimy. And then you just start kneading it again. Again, you don't want it to get too wet. You don't want it to become slimy or anything like that because it doesn't write very well. Now, if you do get it too wet, then just keep on kneading it for a while and it will end up drying out on you again a little bit until you get to the right consistency that you want. All right, so clay is dried out really bad. So once you're done kneading it, then you want to start to shape it. Now, clay tablets in ancient times were rectangular in shape, and they weren't perfectly flat. They weren't flat like this table is flat. They were curved around the flat ends, and so they had a bit of a curvature of them. Now, to achieve that, what you do is you see the palm of your hand is kind of curved that same way. So you take your dough, your clay rather, you put it in the palm of your hand, right in the middle there, right where the impression is. Take your other palm and put it in the same spot, and then you just mash it together. And you see you get a flat surface, but it's not too flat. You get that curvature. See that? And you also don't want it to be too thin. You don't want it to be paper thin or anything like that, because then it'll snap in half really easy. This kind of size, this kind of thickness will give you a good shape and it'll give you good strength as well. And again, they were rectangular, it's kind of circular. You can do any kind of shape you want to. You can do circular, you can do triangle, you can do whatever you want. They did several different shapes. The most common type was rectangular, so we're going to do that today. So to do that, just take your 2 fingers and just kind of shape it into a rectangle. Very, very easy to do. Okay, and then you can mash it down again, what you did before. And just keep doing that until you get the shape that you want.
Spend too much time preparing
once you have
the tablet.
shape that you want, and this might take some time. The shaping and the kneading is probably the most difficult part of this entire exercise for the kids. So let them take their time with it, and they may need to take some time, and that's all right. So once you get the shape that you need, though, then you see all these cracks here. You're going to want to get rid of every one of those cracks all the way around, on every side, every edge, everywhere. Because if you don't, then once it dries, it will split apart, expand, and especially if you put it in the oven or in a kiln, it'll explode on you. In the sun, it'll just cause you problems. It'll just pop and crack and that sort of thing. You don't want that kind of thing. So to do that, you just take 2 fingers, you dip them into the clay, or into the water rather, just again, like you did before, just the tip of your fingers, not much at all. And then you just start rubbing over top the surface. You use your fingers as kind of an eraser, erase all those cracks. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten rid of all the cracks in my clay, and we are ready to start writing on it. Again, every single edge, there is no cracks. All right, so once you're ready to start writing on it, then there's one thing that you can do. If you want to have a blank like this, you just want to write the letters on there, that's just fine. If you want to create lines that you want to keep inside of, you can take the blade of your stylus and just use it to create those lines. I wouldn't get them too deep. Make sure, but that will give you a nice straight edge that you can write your characters on. Now, this is something that the ancients commonly did, not always, but commonly. And it helped them keep their character straight and their writing straight. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is learn how to write. So first thing, again, how to hold the stylus. We saw this before. Remember, the blade goes to your right and the glossy side is out. And you're going to write with just this tip right here. Now, there are 3 types of wedges that you can make with cuneiform. The first one, you're going to make just a triangle, and it looks like this. Just like that. And that's all that it is. Just a nice little triangle. To do that, you just take this edge here, and the writing edge, and you're just going to press it down into the clay. And that's it. You just make a little tick. Just like that. And there you have your wedge. Simple, isn't it? All right, the second one is going to be the same thing. You're going to make a triangle with a tail on the end. So to do that, you're going to do the same thing. It's going to look like this, actually, is what it's going to look like. All right, see how it's a triangle with a tail on the end. It's much longer. So to do that, you're just going to take your stylus. You're going to just take your stylus, just the tip there. And just like with a triangle, you're going to push it in. Only this time, you're going to lower the back like that. Okay, so you push it in and lower. And that's all you do. So you have your tail. Now the final one is called a hook. And what it looks like is this right here. That last one right there. All right, so to make the hook, instead of using the tip, you're going to use the glossy side. You're going to hold your stylus, instead of holding it like this, horizontal, you're going to diagonally hold it, just like this. And you're just going to push the glossy side in. at an angle, so it makes a little thing, and that's it. And those are the three types of wedges that you're going to make. And with those three types of wedges, you can make just about any kind of character that you want within cuneiform. That's it. So you have your triangle, you have your tail, and you have your hook. And that's all there is to it. All right, so the last thing that you can do is writing, and this is going to be the actual activity. Once you teach the kids how to make the wedges and different wedge types, then you just start writing. All right, and what you do is you give them the sheet that's on my website that has the Ugaritic alphabet, or you can also use a sheet that has different Akkadian characters. All right, but in any case, you're going to be using this with cuneiform. And what I usually have them do is write their name or some kind of secret message in cuneiform. Now, the problem with the Ugaritic alphabet is that there are no vowels. If you look at that sheet, there are no vowels in it, just like in Hebrew. In fact, Hebrew is based on Ugaritic alphabet, or vice versa. We're not really sure which one. So what you can do is, if you have any vowels, the sheet that I gave you, I added in a few vowels, A, E, and I think, and U, and I don't remember exactly how many. But if there is a vowel in there and it's not on the sheet, then just tell them to skip that vowel, or they can make a vowel up or something like that. The characters that I have that have vowels are not actually vowels. They are simply like glottal stops and things like that, which is something we don't have in English. So I substituted a vowel with them, so they can put any vowel they want to pretty much in those and still be just fine. So my name is Steve, and I'm going to write my name in there. So first character we have is S, which is that right there, S. And the next one is T, which is just a simple horizontal wedge with a tail. And then finally, B, or I'm going to use the letter B here. And then finally, N.
Okay, now instead of looking at it, let's look at the syllabus. So this is supposed to be the current style's alphabets. Of course, this is modernized. Okay, so we have vowel here, and because Hebrew is also haven't got vowel, that's why I invited Albert to give us a talk next time during the first term, first lectures in second term, so that let him explain to us how Hebrew work. So they probably will be similar, I hope. Anyway,
Hebrew has had vowels added for the last 1,500 years or so. But originally, the vowels were not there.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when it's my turn.
Yeah. So that's why I've invited you.
I'm also talking about other Jewish languages such as Yiddish, Ladino, and Aramaic.
Yeah, okay. So we will look forward to that. So wedge line on clay tablets, okay, and made by a blunt end of a stylus. I suppose it can be a reed. It's not necessarily made of bamboo. It can be a reed or anything which can have an angle. So probably there's it is 4 million BCE. So that is 6,000 years ago. The reason why it is very much studied is because clay tablet, where it is fired for whatever reason, it becomes china, and therefore a pottery, and it hardened, and therefore it lasts. Whereas for other languages, if you're writing on something like bamboo, it doesn't last long. Or in skin of the tree, it doesn't last long. So there's a reason why this Sumerian writings has spread, because we have a lot of samples. And after the branches of different language, then I will talk about the media on which the language is written. So over time, there are different methods of writing, because paper was only invented about 2,500 years ago in Chinese later part of the Han Dynasty. So it's not too long ago. So we need to look at, and there has been a lot of this, between 500,000 to 2 million tablets has been discovered in various parts. And that, because of that, actually you can go online and buy a tablet. Yes. Most of
Albert, before you had paper, you had parchment.
Yep. And then before that, we have other things called, is that called papyrus? Papyrus. And before that, we also have animal skins as well.
Yeah.
And then for Chinese, they have turtle shell. So there are different media. So we'll look at that in the due course. The shapes have changed with time. Probably it's because of the change of the writing instrument. Your writing instrument changed, and therefore the symbol change. In the last column, about 1000 BC, it looks like all made by this wedge stylus. And even 2,400 ago, it will be stylus. But for 3,000 years, 3,000 BC, I don't think it is stylus. It might be just some stick marking. So as the writing instrument change, the characters also change. And that also happens to the Chinese character as well. So these are some of the examples. And we see circular dots. Circular dots is pretty easy. Just get a branch of a tree branch, whatever, and plug it in. Where am I? I think I have gone too, I've gone too quickly. Come on. I have jumped to the end. Okay, we finished this one. Chinese oracle scripts. Now, beside tortoise shell, many of them is written on the, is that the blade bone of the animal? Is that called blade bone? Shoulder bone. Yeah. Shoulder blade, yeah. So again, looking at this, it must have something very sharp to scratch on it. A small stone knife will do. So when we see this much, we don't necessarily have to think of metal knives. A small stone knives can also scratch on it very well. So this one is about 80,000 years ago. Some of these, again, I think I can read. This one is 3, and this is day, 3 days, or the sun, this mark. So again, because the similarity, it took about 100 years. Then the Chinese oracle has been decrypted. So because it is so similar to modern Chinese. Another 2 examples here. That one is I have shown before, and this is another one. These are some of the translated version of that. I think every Chinese recognize this. This is the mountain. And this is the bow. shooting arrow bow. Okay, and this is the well, the water well. You dig a hole to collect water, water well. And this is the valley. And this is the car. 2 wheels with people pulling in front. Right? And this is what is an animal. It's a sheep. Yeah. The sheep. This one. And the sheep. Yeah. This is left. This one represents the left. And this one represents single. This one represents your home. So you have something and then people inside a house. So it's home. So Chinese is pretty easy to read, isn't it? And of course, these forms of writing spread to very late, even to the Bronze Age. So we can find them in the bronze recovered from archaeology. Okay, so these are a bronze vessel, and then you will see all this marking on that, and they're the same. So it has the same similar because the standardization occurs after the first emperor. Okay, going right there to America. Maya script. They are very complicated, but the numbers are easy. Okay, 1.1, 2.2, 3.3, 4.4. 5 dots a bit too much, so a stroke. And then again, 6 is 5 plus 1. 7 is 5 plus 2, etc. And then 10, 2 horizontal stroke, and so on. So quite similar to the Roman numerals, isn't it? Would that be the same origin? We don't know. So again, this same origin is a very interesting idea. This is from America. Roman numbers are in Europe. They are so far away, but they have so much similarities. Even for the Chinese, we have similar characters as well.
Do they actually have 0? Because I thought the
Indians invented 0, but
yeah.
I think, but other numbers, I think the Arabs. I think Arabs invented the 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Yeah. The 0 is interesting. I really don't know whether this is adopted or new or whatever, because I just get this from the web, you know. Now, this is a very complicated characters. So looks like every characters make out of 2 parts or 3. Okay. So for this one, the left hand side, right hand side. So it's quite similar to the Chinese as well. Chinese characters occupy the same space. And then in the characters, some of them like that will have a overarching something inside. So for an untrained eye, we don't know what to look for the characteristics. But I suppose some of them will be decorative, but some will be characteristic. And then knowing the characteristic will let you decode all this information. Okay, I'm running out of time, so we'll rush through that one. Another one similar to that. And then the Egyptians. Okay, so that's it for, we cover a lot, but again, I promise you, I will send out the PowerPoint, the handout during the holiday. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Albert.
Yeah, welcome. So we'll go to the next session.
Thank you, Albert. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Sorry, my name is not on the list, so do you want me to write my name?
Yeah, a piece. Yeah. A pen. Let me see when I carry a pen.